The year is 2425. Somewhere in what was once the United States, archaeologists toil beneath the dust of centuries, unearthing the ruins of a once vibrant settlement known as Portland. Here, beneath layers of rubble, they discover what appears to have been a sacred site of gathering, a former coffee shop, identified only by two words: cup and bean. Among the remains, they uncover relics of a peculiar civilization, vinyl records, fixed-gear bicycles, and the flannel. Could it be? Perhaps within this mound of cuffed denim, typewriters and tote bags lies the key to understanding humanity's final struggle to be real in a world that was rapidly becoming digital. This is the tale of their rise and fall, the story of the Hipster. Like a candle in a mason jar atop a reclaimed wood shelf, the story of the Hipster is a fleeting one, brief, glowing, and scented faintly of cedar and irony. Never self-identified as such, these young adults adorn themselves in thick-rimmed glasses, skinny jeans, denim jackets, and cultivated beards, all while insisting they drew no inspiration from the likes of Mumford & Sons. But if we look closer into these peculiar tribes, we find something deeper, a yearning for authenticity, cloaked in unoriginality. Emerging from the ashes of the 2000s, the Hipster was an evolutionary response to a changing world, shedding its former emo and preppy identities as it entered the 2010s. Many of these early specimens were in their 20s, infiltrating college campuses before expanding their habitat to coffee shops, farmers markets, and local breweries. Today, we examine their impact, the marks they left upon culture, and the artifacts that remain. And by the end of our exploration, much like a BuzzFeed quiz from 2012, you may find yourself wondering, were you a hipster? Before we can uncover their cultural impact, we must first understand who the hipster was. To the untrained eye, they may appear indistinguishable from the average early 2010s human. But upon closer examination, we find a species claiming to be unlike the other girls, fueled by caffeine and bound by an unshakable desire to appear effortlessly original. They were humanity's final attempt to be real before the world became fully digital. To them, authenticity was sacred, a kind of faith practiced through devotion to vinyl over digital and drinking only IPAs at breweries. They worshipped at the altars of the French press, inventing new ways to perfect the coffee brewing ritual through ever more complicated methods. For the hipster, each morning was a sacred pilgrimage to the coffee shop. Here, seated at a table of reclaimed wood and beneath the glow of Edison bulbs, they engaged in one of their most hallowed rituals, the pour-over. The barista, often the alpha of the group, presided over this ceremony with the precision of a high priest. Armed with sailor-inspired tattoos despite residing in the inner city of Detroit, Michigan, he poured hot water over freshly ground beans in slow meditative circles, a performance equal parts ceremony and flex. Nearby, the female hipsters documented the experience, snapping Polaroids of their heart-shaped latte art, then taking a photo of that Polaroid on their phone. This hipster would share her unique lifestyle with the masses on Instagram, captioned simply, "Cozy Vibes." Next to her, the male hipster, donning his wool-knit rolled beanie and cuffed sleeves, journaled about the poison of capitalistic consumerism in his moleskin notebook, ironically purchased from Etsy. Unbeknownst to these two, these were not acts of mockery, but of devotion, each one in an attempt to manifest the past in an age obsessed with the future. Outside the cafe, the hipster's ecosystem thrived in perfect balance. The fixed-gear cyclist glided silently through the streets. Jeans rolled high enough to reveal artisanal socks. The vintage collector marked his territory with a stack of vinyl, his mating call a distant hum of Bon Iver drifting through an open window. Every object in their world held meaning. The stainless steel water bottle known as the Clean Canteen, which travelled everywhere with its owner, was not merely a vessel, it was a symbol of sustainability and rustic minimalism. Though sold to the masses, the hipster would remind his fellow man that he, in fact, had a clean canteen before it was cool, yet again fueling an overwhelming need to stand out, to be individual in a world of uniformity and Starbucks. Hipsters saw their tribes explode across cities like Portland, Brooklyn, Silver Lake and Seattle. Each neighborhood formed its own ecological niche, evolved to support different variants of the species. The craft brewer hipster gathered at the local taproom, sampling hazy IPAs named after obscure indie lyrics. The thrift store scavenger emerged at dawn, rummaging through bins for vintage denim and ironic windbreakers. The minimalist urbanite migrated between co-working spaces, feeding on cold brew and validation. Each tribe, isolated in its own urban environment, remained unaware of its nearly identical habitat. At the centre of it all lay their unspoken creed: to be authentic, one must first appear to be authentic. The more natural the look, the more effort it required. Beards were meticulously maintained to seem unmaintained. Outfits were curated to feel spontaneous. Even their tattoos, a moustache inked across the finger to be held to the lip like a symbol of ironic individuality, were inspired by Pinterest. Each hipster, unique in their own way, still marched to the same Stomp Clap Hey song by a band you wouldn't know anything about. To outsiders, their world seemed contradictory, but to the hipster, this balance between irony and sincerity was essential for survival. To care too much was cringe, to care too little was mainstream. Only in the liminal space between could they thrive. As their influence spread, their habitats grew crowded. Coffee shops became chains, their secret music went viral, and soon their idols of rebellion, the mason jar and the suspenders, were no longer thrifted, but mass-produced and found at rustic barn weddings across the country. Like a forest consumed by its own wildfire, their ecosystem began to collapse under the weight of commercialization. What the hipsters thought was a pure pursuit of authenticity had, paradoxically, made them predictable. The corporate predators had now signed their favourite indie bands. Chain restaurants had evolved to incorporate the Edison bulb, and suddenly their rivals, the boomers, were listening to Ho Hey by the Lumineers on their morning commute to corporate cubes. In the end, they stood at the precipice of the modern era, the final generation to remember a world before algorithms decided what was cool. Hanging up their wide-brim hats and southwestern native decor blankets, the hipster could sense their time was coming to an end. As the 2010s continued forward, a strange phenomenon began to unfold. What once belonged to the few was now desired by the many. The hipster aesthetic, once a symbol of rebellion, was discovered by its most dangerous predator of all, the corporation. Sensing opportunity, brands began to mimic the rituals of the tribe. Car commercials no longer showed horsepower or chrome, they showed 20-somethings in wide-brim hats driving into the wilderness to string lights between two trees and strum an acoustic guitar around a campfire. Insurance companies, coffee chains and soda brands adopted the same soft-focus lens and ukulele soundtrack, selling not products, but the illusion of authenticity. The sacred imagery of the hipster was everywhere. Aesthetics once used to escape capitalism were now the packaging for it. Technology delivered the final blow. Platforms like Instagram, Twitter and later TikTok amplified the once niche aesthetic until it consumed the internet. The analog world the hipster longed to preserve was replaced by a perfectly filtered digital copy of itself. Every pour-over, every Polaroid, every sunset in the Pacific Northwest was replicated millions of times, flattened into hashtags and optimized for engagement. The algorithm, indifferent and efficient, devoured the species from within. What was once counterculture became content. The quiet introspection of the coffee shop became the background noise of the feed. Their rebellion had gone viral, and in doing so, it had died. By the late 2010s, the word hipster had evolved from identity to insult. It became shorthand for anyone who drank IPAs, owned a record player, or dared to mention the word artisanal. In television and film, the hipster appeared as comic relief, an ironic caricature with suspenders, a twirled moustache, and an inflated sense of taste. For a species once defined by their avoidance of labels, being labelled was the ultimate humiliation. They began to shed their flannel and hide their beards, insisting they had never truly been hipsters at all. Homebrewing kits gathered dust, Tumblr accounts lay dormant. Even their beloved pour-over was quietly replaced by the Keurig. And so, by the dawn of the next decade, the civilization that once prided itself on being ahead of the curve had vanished beneath it. Their aesthetic lived on, hollow and rebranded, while the tribe itself faded into the cultural background noise it had tried so hard to escape. The great extinction was not sudden. It came softly, like the gentle fade of a vintage filter, until nothing remained but the echo of a ukulele playing softly under a car commercial. Though the hipsters have vanished, their influence quietly endures. Much of what surrounds us today, the endless coffee options, the curated playlists, the local overpriced millennial burger joints, are echoes of their pursuit of meaning in the mundane. In their quest to make the ordinary feel special, they helped shape the culture we now take for granted. And though their empire has seen its last, the hipster has found a way to seamlessly blend into modern life. Some have evolved into tech professionals, riding e-bikes to their software jobs with the newest water bottle trend in hand. Others have reappeared online as lifestyle creators and mom influencers, channeling their old aesthetic into clean kitchens, pastel smoothies, and carefully framed TikToks. Many have simply settled into suburban life, pickleball paddle in hand, no longer chasing the cutting edge, but still carrying that quiet need for individuality. Though the tribe is gone, their fingerprints remain. They taught a generation to value creativity, to care about presentation, and to find beauty in small things. The irony that once defined them has mellowed into appreciation, and what began as rebellion now feels like nostalgia. And so, in the year 2425, as we lay to rest this archaeological rubble that was once the hipster tribe, we look back not with mockery, but with fondness. For in their brief, caffeinated moment, they reminded humanity of something profound. That before the world went completely digital, we still cared deeply about feeling real.